I started off today really thinking this is going to be a lucky day for Luciano. I checked the weather and it looks like we're going to be able to paint today at last. And boy, looking back at some of these, this is my old backyard before we put the stones in. And the Suzuki with the seat that I made, a lot of good memories. And of course the model planes of that era. I always feel like a farmer getting the eggs from the chickens in the morning when I come out here in the cold weather to flip the battery chargers, but today is supposed to warm up above freezing by lunchtime. We should be able to do some painting today, and boy, we have waited for a decent painting day. And actually we have two projects to try to work on today. The front wheel is ready. Actually it's very ready. As soon as it warms up a little, we'll be ready to paint. And Luciano's Cafe Racer, and Luciano's going to be down in the next couple days. He's got the gas cap he needs me to do a refinish job on. And supposedly he's itching like I am to see this with the tape off it. Really excited about this day because we waited through 2 or 3 days of crappy, snowy, icy, rainy. We were doing detailing and everything, but we really wanted to get some painting done. And anytime I'm working on a wheel, it's really the first day you see it with the base color paint on it. Pretty exciting. And we really, again, we have waited for this day. But of course there's no guarantee, and you never know when the weather's going to turn on you. It's like a pit bull that hasn't eaten in a while. He could just turn around and bite you. But now we're in the 4th month of doing this restoration, and it's really coming together. And I'm really excited about seeing some of the details. If the weather had been a little different, I'd already have some of the bike assembled, but it's just been too cold to be out here. And a special thanks to all the people who wake up every morning and enjoy the video and have their cup of coffee or their glass of vodka or whatever they have, and enjoy watching us plan out a day. And today we should be able to get some stuff painted. And that's the kind of day I always enjoy the most. I love to see the paint flow through the gun. There's still ice on the pond and there's still snow everywhere, so we're going to have to be really careful walking around out here because I didn't do a lot of shoveling. But as always, this will make the day worthwhile. We'll get started here any minute. So we have painting projects that are basically all backmasked, ready for the final prep. The wheel ready for the final wipe down. I'm ready. That coffee was so good this morning. Holy mackerel. Can't imagine how good it tastes. Now I'm going to have to move the table around because I can't really walk back here. Still a lot of snow and ice. Look at this. This is the what is this? Ice. Oh my God, it's ice. Whoa. There we go. Man overboard. I clean my table off and get things ready here. It's really going to be challenging because this is basically all solid ice. But what I did, I can't paint over these stones because the paint, I don't want to ruin the stones. So I took a rubber mat. I think that'll be okay. Working off the end of the table, and I always put that piece of aluminum that Mark Morgan. Actually, we got 2 of them, just to get the part jacked up a little bit. But it's still a lot of ice on everything. Well, we got a little time before we be ready to paint, but I think that's going to be a hell of a setup for today. Wow, that's unbelievable. But battle conditions, you got to figure it out. The final prep on all these parts. You would think this would be, well, because we had these parts sitting a few days. And that's going to mean we want to really be careful taking the tape off. I really don't want to get I don't want to make myself any extra work here, but we just have to paint the yellow on these for today, so I'm tack ragging them down. There's no we fixed all the big mistakes in this. Hopefully the Rust-Oleum alligator will not be coming to visit us, but once these are all prepped up, I'll be ready to paint. Now that's one of the little things about my videos that I try to emphasize and pass on to people is, yeah, if you're able to have access to a nice spray booth on a warm sunny day in Southern California and it's never going to rain, it's never going to snow, and you're 18 years old, you'll probably find this to be very easy. I find it difficult. It's never easy up here, and you can see why this morning. Now luckily Luciano has, and I spoke to him this morning, get this tape down, told him we're ready to paint. He was pretty excited about that, and he's going to try to get up here in the next couple days. He's got a full plate to work. He's got the frame and the motor back in the frame, and it's out in the garage. And I told him about this emblem being a little cocky, and he said it's not a big deal. He's got 2 sets of emblems. One of them has offset screws. I was not aware of that. Again, he's going to bring them when he visits. These little spots we had to touch up. Usually it's in these valleys where the tape wants to come up, and at the last minute or just before you spray. Nice if you can press that all down. And we are all prepped, and of course for final tack rag on everything. And by the time I get the wheel tack rag down and prepped, it should be up to 32 degrees out there. Really looking forward to it. Anyway, this has been the Rust-Oleum adventure continues. This is actually the last high-risk thing where we're putting the automotive paint over the what I'll call the Rust-Oleum alligator, for lack of a better word. But the clear usually never penetrates in and does any damage. If you're going to have issues, it's going to be when we do this yellow paint today. And of course the goal today will be to get 3 coats of yellow, because we're going over white. It should be very consistent and very bright. But to get 3 coats of yellow, roughly 20 minutes apart, would be a perfect scenario. Get it all put in the garage because we're having a baby come over this afternoon. So nothing can be in the house. I'm sure we'll get it done. The weather is cooperating, at least so far. Now I have some time to think about an idea I had thought about. Let me just explain as I'm going to tack rag this down. Oh, before. In a perfect world, right here we're going to be putting a stripe. So we would like the paint not to have a lot of buildup. I don't want a lot of buildup here right around the edge. I'd like it to be as thin as possible. The choices I had at one point in time, I was going to not even backmask it, just airbrush yellow, white first, then yellow, then put the tape in there and do the stripe. That would have been, well, one choice. And I kind of, I don't want to have all that extra paint up along the edge here, because this is where you tend to, if we do have to use a tire iron to finish putting a tire on, and from time to time, if the tire is not warm enough, you do need to use tools. But in the summer, or when the tire is warm, you can just snap it right. And we've done that a million times on video. So no point in thinking about that. But I do want to protect all the work I've put into this rim. So what I thought might be worth trying, and it's just an experiment, I have the airbrush, the Iwata airbrush. I might want to just do the edge of this right where it's going to be vulnerable with the airbrush. And then put the paint in the normal spray gun that we use and do the rest of the wheel. I don't know if I'm going to do that yet, because I still have some things I have to do around the house before. And I'm doing what I'm doing, and today would be a typical example of something. I have some honey-do stuff, which I guess most people have. And I thought, well, you know what, I ought to do that first, because then it'll be later in the day. It'll probably be 4 or 5, maybe 10 degrees warmer by the time I'm done. So I want to think about this. I do have that option of doing it, but in the meantime, I wanted to show, no matter what you do, is tack rag most of all down into the corners here. That's where this, if you're going to have a paint release pop failure of any kind, it's going to be down in the, always down in the valley. Sounds like a song, like a Dolly Parton song or something. But anyway, my poor workbench is all iced up out there. Oy, oy, oy. But I have survived some pretty crappy conditions. I often wonder, this is the kind of thing I think it's just funny. If I were born a wealthy boy's son, my father owned an auto body, and I don't know what, you know, maybe if I was better looking too, it might help, or had a personality. So here's what I always think is, would I be a better painter? Because sometimes you do the best when you really have to grovel. I don't know, but I ask myself all the time. Anyway, we pretty much do the other side of that. We're ready to go paint. I have the paint already mixed. So I thought I'd have the choice of doing this. And I don't know if I'm going to really want to do this until I do a test. And that's the problem with everything. I like to have it, I like to do a little test. Okay, so I have the black in the gun now, in the airbrush now. When I actually do go to do it, I'm going to have this choice. I'm going to set up a spray gun with black and a spray gun with yellow and an airbrush with black before I actually go to paint, because once that weather warms up, I want to take full advantage of it. Okay, now one of the things Luciano and I do different, and Luciano of course worked as a car painter back in Italy, so he has different techniques than I do. One of the things I always do, and I think it's good for amateurs like myself, he's got the number of the paint on here, and that's fine. But what I always do is when I put thinner in the paint, I always write RTS as an example. I've mixed this paint, and this is for the FZR wheel, and I put RTS. That means ready to spray, so that you don't overly add thinner to it. Now I'm looking at this paint, this is pretty thin stuff. I don't know if he added thinner to this or not. I'm not going to know until I do a paint test. But if he had written RTS on it, well, I wouldn't have to. I would just go right out and be pretty much ready to paint. But that's not always the case. So what I'm going to have to do, as I do with anytime I'm using somebody else's materials, I've got to do a little paint test. Now, so what I'll do is I'll mix up a small batch of this with a little bit of thinner, 50-50 thinner, and see what, just a small batch now, because if it's too thin, then I'm stuck with it. I'm married to it. Now, I admit I do more testing than most people do. What I'm going to do, I decided here, make a good thing up, I'm just doing this by eye, 50-50 mix. I got two little marks on the jar. Mid-temp thinner for a day like today. The whole objective of this, I don't want to waste paint, I don't want to waste my time, I don't want to waste anything. So this is now my test batch, and if this works and sprays out well, I'll know if I have to add more thinner to his mix or less thinner, or and even so, even if he told me I added thinner, I don't know how much he added. Some people do it like I just did by eye. You go, yeah, and then some people have little measuring cups and everything. But then conditions change, so it's all of no value, and you've got to be able to fine tune it. It's like being a cook. You got to know how much salt to put in. Tastes right. Karen's making soup. You know, so that's the whole point of paint. That in the very beginning you start with 50-50, but then shop conditions change. Oh, it's warmer out. Oh, a little more thinner. It's colder out. Do this. Put different, slower thinner, faster thinner. It's an endless tuning. But I can tell right away as soon as I spray this. So let me do my test, and then we'll know where we stand with that. And a lot of times when you do a test, then you really know. And this is going to tell us exactly where we stand. So what I just have to take one of these cans or something, and I can go do my spray test outside. So my little test tells me that 50-50 is going to be a little bit too thin, so I'll make up a batch now with a little bit less thinner. And apparently there already is some thinner in there, so I want to make it a little bit thicker. I'll go back and do another test. So the deal is, if you were constantly at a same, like you would be in a body shop, a controlled body shop, well, and where temperatures were stable. Things here are anything but stable. It's not even close. So we're always trying to fine tune things, and if the spray is, if the paint's a little too thick, it comes out orange peely. If it's a little too thin, well, then you don't get coverage, and it tends to run. So we're going to try to fine tune this batch for the conditions today. It's exactly the same thing you would do if you were fine tuning a two-stroke motorcycle you come from a cold climate to a warm place, you've got to rejet. Well, what we're doing right here is rejetting the two-stroke. Now you can see why we paint everything white. Anytime you use thin paint like this, yellow is a very light color. It's going to take several coats to cover, and that's why we want to get at least 3 coats 20 minutes apart. It looks like we've got the mix pretty close right now, and it looks like there was quite a bit of thinner in that paint, but for today's conditions we're going to add just a little bit more, and that's it. We're ready. Now, I did plenty of spray testing out here because such unique conditions. It's so cold, it's so icy, and we're just coming up, going over freezing right now. Another half an hour. Well, the second and third coats of this will be on in a little bit warmer, just a little bit warmer. And it may seem that all that fine tuning, all that testing, maybe it seems like overkill. It really isn't. Now the other thing, because some of these, this is a good tip too, some of these, you see I've written on this, cap leaks. Some of these guns, and this is the one I use for yellow, I have one for various color. Each gun has a separate color. So when a cap leaks, I put masking tape or electrical tape around here just to keep it from dripping down. But it doesn't really matter, and most of the time I'm spraying in this dimension, but if you get down and you want to shoot down, sometime it'll get a drip, and obviously I don't want to do that. So sealing up the cap on these older guns. The new ones don't leak, by the way. The new ones, they have different threads in the cap. And of course I've got, I don't know how many of them over there. There's 3 or 4 with different colors, and there's 3 or 4 up on the wall, and 2 over there. I wish I would have bought stock on Harbor Freight years ago. Well, the goal is to get 3 coats of yellow on about 20 minutes apart. And boy, the weather is really, really perfect for painting now. Above freezing. What I'm trying to see is, with each coat, it gets more and more yellow, that's for sure. We will put 3 coats on though. Now what's amazing is how much that color changes with the second coat. I got 2 coats on this, 1 more coat to go. It just keeps getting more and more yellow. That's a tricky color to paint. But I wanted to do the small parts first before I do the gas tank, because any fine tuning I still have to do, I want to do on these. I want the gas tank to be just idiot proof. Now with the first coat on, it's really starting to look yellow. You notice how I'm painting front to back, top to bottom, and then 45 and 45. I'm trying to do that. Trying to condense that down, even though some of this footage is in 10 times fast forward. Okay, that's the third coat, and that really is yellowy yellow now. Definitely need 3 coats. Well, we got 3 coats on that, and that's about as yellow as it's gonna get. Well, that looks beautiful. Luciano, I hope you're happy. So what I always like to see after a nice coffee break, the yellow is as yellow can be. Now he's got this. This is going to match his R6, and my guy is going to match the FZR. How cool is that? Anyway, that is about as yellow gets. And that really worked. It was so worth waiting for a good day. Now, it's going to be interesting to see if the wheel is going to go well, and we'll try it. What I want to do is I want to try airbrushing around the edges. This is just really a test for me. I'm always trying to test something. Always trying to raise the bar. So what we're going to try to do is see how the airbrush will work around a rim and up into this side here where I want to minimize the paint. This is just a little experiment on my part. So it looked like that worked exactly like I wanted it to. And actually, I may paint the whole rim with this. I'm going to see how this, I'll do one side first. That airbrush is really working well today. So actually my little experiment worked pretty good, and I think I'm going to try doing a whole wheel with the airbrush just because we're good to go on time here. And what will happen if I do that, I'll get a really smooth coat of paint. It should be almost no orange peel. That'll set me up for some really nice clear. Now this will take a little more time because you got to refill the airbrush. You know, that's 2 times. But I think it's one of those little quality things. Might be worth, and it's worth doing a test anyway. So that little experiment, I think it's worth adding the paint, because what's going to happen here, I didn't really think this through. I was just going to do the edge, but when I saw how nice it's covering, well, of course with painting black, so, and to get the thinnest amount of black on there that makes it black, that just going to really make, there'll be no sanding here. It'll just be, once that dries, hopefully go right into the clear. Hey, well, boy, that is going to be nice. Anyway, that wheel really is coming out nice. And this is really the only downside of this, is that we don't have a bigger cup. They probably do make one. Because most of the time you would not be doing this kind of work with an airbrush, but boy, this has worked out better than I ever thought it would. Now it may be that in the future I'll be using an airbrush for all the wheels. I did not really, this is the first time I've done a whole wheel with an airbrush, and I'm shocked at how good it's working out, because I know without the orange peel in there, everything's just going to sit down a whole lot nicer. This is a big time saver for me, because normally if I have any orange peel on this, I would have to sand it, that this is really going to be a time saver. And you lose time filling the gun, and a day like today, I don't care. We're using up this whole day, right up until the point we get the baby to do really good quality paint. Luciano's job is really good, and this, I can't tell you how impressed I am, how nice that's coming out. Now, of course, I got to do the second wheel, and we're doing this under, you know, some pretty cold conditions, but the combination of the airbrush and fine-tuning the paint is really letting that come out nice. Now I put that previous, this whole side is done without a camera cut, but it's in 10 times forward, of course. Show you how many times I had to fill the little cup. Now there's another trick, and this is a really significant trick. I've fallen for this before. I would spin the wheel in a clockwise direction and I'd be all done. I'd go put the clear on, and I noticed some spots I didn't have the same amount of paint as in other spots. So it's important to turn the wheel clockwise and shoot especially the spokes, because you get this edge of the spoke, but that edge of the spoke just gets a light coating. So then if you spin it this way, you get that edge, that edge, that edge. You stop. Now you get that edge, that edge, that edge. It's just really important. Now what's important now, and I'm going to do it right now, I'm going to let that tack out, and I've got a little more paint left to do. I'm going to go over the whole thing with a second coat. But I'm not going to get a big paint buildup up here where our stripe is going to be. But I'll get plenty of paint on the spokes, plenty of paint down in there where we want to see a nice reflection of light. But I want to minimize it. The whole reason for doing this in the beginning was to not to get a lot of paint up there. But I think what's really happened is I've stumbled upon, and it's a way I'm going to use, I think, in the future to do all my wheels. It takes a little more time, but I know that black will not have to be sanded before I put the clear on. So that's a really big saving. Anyway, we're trying to share. This is an ongoing, everything I do. My whole life's an adventure. And I'm always trying things. Some of them work. A lot of them don't work. This is one that worked. This is one you can put in the bank. Like, as I always say, worth watching a whole video for that. Just as a point of reference, I remember the airbrushing really made the edges of everything nice because there's not a lot of paint buildup. So I think in the future, as I do other jobs, or we don't know what, you never know what's going to happen in this shop. Could be painting a space shuttle next. But here's the whole thing. Every time you experiment, you run the risk that you're just going to waste time. But on a day like today, we found something we really can put in the bank and we can share with you. Definitely a good tip. The wheels with the airbrush couldn't have worked any better today. It's unbelievable. Now all that's left is to get that into the garage where it can dry overnight. And then we'll be doing, well, a good evaluation of it, because I think this is really an upgrade over what we had before. And we still have the back wheel to do. Now talk about a day, it was well worth waiting for the good weather. Wow, holy cow, did we luck out today. But it's Luciano's lucky day, it's my lucky day. But you know, in my case, every day is my lucky day. I'm just glad I made it to almost 74. And I can still enjoy these kind of projects. Anyway, that you never know when you're going to stumble upon something. Today looks like one of those days. This whole project, we've had a ton of surprises. We've learned a lot. We've shared a lot. And I've enjoyed a lot. This is really, it's building to a, I don't know, like a movie where you want to find out who Sherlock Holmes murdered or whatever. I look at the finish. And I look at that wheel, and I haven't even started the back wheel, but that's going to shave hours off the work we'd have to put into the back wheel. So the paint couldn't be better. Luciano's job is done. I'm ready for a nap. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.